Welcome to the TenNet Indigenous Wisdom Research Center. I am your host, author Tenet Setegn. In this broadcast series, we explore the profound mysteries within our research. Ethiopian esoteric philosophy and alchemy. Our journey into channeling hidden wisdom begins now.
Welcome to the debate. You know, when we look at metamorphosis in nature, I think we tend to focus on the poetry of the outcome.
Right. The beautiful butterfly emerging from the chrysalis.
Exactly. We look at it and we see this beautiful, seamless narrative of growth. But if you actually look inside a chrysalis halfway through that process, it is not a caterpillar with wings taped on.
No, it's a biological soup.
It is complete anatomical chaos. The caterpillar has literally digested itself. Its original form is entirely obliterated to make way for the new.
Yeah, it doesn't just change its outfit. It ceases to exist as it was.
Exactly. And that violent destruction is really the core of what we're debating today. Because when human beings pursue ultimate transcendent wisdom, do they just get an upgrade, or do they have to completely destroy who they were to become something new?
And our source text today examines this pursuit not as some, self-help tool for managing a poultry farm or getting a promotion. It frames it as a profound, honestly terrifying shift from a temporary existence to an eternal one.
Right. And my position today is that true ontological transformation fundamentally requires the complete dismantling and replacement of the original human self.
And I look at that exact same source text, and I see a completely different mechanism at play. I'll be arguing that the highest form of transformation outlined here is an integrative evolution, not a replacement.
So let's dig right into the mechanics of this, because the text is incredibly specific about how this elevation actually works. To elevate one's existence to a higher, eternal state, it demands a violent rupture from the original form.
Well, a rupture, sure, but not
a complete dismantling. The text explicitly states that for this fundamental change of nature, what it calls Bahri, to occur, there must be mephris, dismantling. Mechanically speaking, you just cannot achieve a new nature while maintaining the structural integrity of the old one.
I understand the emphasis on mephris, but I think
it's an ontological deletion, right? The original existence of the caterpillar is effectively canceled from the registry of creation. If you want to achieve ultimate wisdom, your mundane human identity cannot just receive a software patch. The host organism has to be sacrificed so the divine organism can take its place.
Okay, you call it a sacrifice, but I really think you're misreading the text's ultimate goal here. The goal of wisdom isn't destruction, it's distillation.
Distillation?
Yes. Look at how the author frequently uses the agricultural analogy of threshing grain, right? Separating the wheat from the chaff. Now, mechanistically, when you thresh grain, you aren't destroying the wheat.
But you are violently removing the layers.
You're revealing it. You are violently removing the superficial, dead layers that surround it, yes, but that separation does not require the absolute annihilation of the human subject. I really want to focus our attention on what the text calls the Dirgyuan framework.
Okay, the Dirgyuan model.
Right. In this model, transformation isn't an abrupt, violent replacement. It's the planting of a seed of zera, of divinity. And this seed grows gradually within the normal human life cycle.
But the mundane self still dies.
It slowly recedes. The text says, I go to death while he goes to life. But the result of this is a seamless union of flesh and divinity. The human experience is actually validated here, not discarded as mere host tissue.
Validated? I really don't see how the text supports validation when it defines human nature the way it does. We have to look at the concept of Bahri.
Right, the fundamental nature.
Exactly. Bahri is the unchangeable nature of a being versus Tabai, which is just your personality, your habits, your cultural conditioning. The text establishes a very strict biological and philosophical boundary here.
It does.
It points out that animals possess inherently different natures, different Bahris. A sheep and a camel cannot crossbreed because their underlying architectural blueprints are fundamentally incompatible. But human beings, We are entirely unique in this framework.
Because we share a single nature.
Yes. All human beings, regardless of geography or history, share a single universal bari. Any variation among us is merely tabai. It's just flavor. And because this human bari is so rigidly uniform across the entire species, I argue it acts as an absolute ceiling.
A ceiling?
Yes, a block. You cannot just shift your tabai, your personality, to become a god. To break out of a universal block of human nature, you have to shatter the block entirely.
Wait, hold on. You are assuming that because the bari is uniform, it is a prison that must be destroyed. I argue the exact opposite. Because the human bari is universal and uniform, it is the perfect, stable substrate for gradual divine integration.
I don't follow. How does uniformity make it a substrate?
Relies entirely on the stability of human nature. When the divine seed is planted, the child doesn't instantly turn into a glowing, unrecognizable alien entity.
Well, no, but...
The child grows normally. They cry, they crawl, they learn to walk just like any other human being. The text emphasizes this deeply. The universal human bakri provides a necessary, stable gravity that allows the divine seed to take root and mature. If you shatter the pot, the soil spills out and the seed dies.
I'm struggling with that, because to me, a rigid, universal nature sounds exactly like a prison you'd have to break out of, not a comfortable bed of soil. And if the human is supposed to be harmoniously integrated, as you say, how do you explain the more terrifying examples in the text?
You mean the alternative models?
Yes, because the child crawling is just the beginning. Let's look at how this text actually describes the mechanical takeover of the host. There's a concept the author introduces called ushek, which is basically the process of becoming a clairgenius or a powerful spirit.
Right.
How does that happen mechanically? The text uses the analogy of grafting. You take a branch of a superior fruit, say an orange, and you physically graft it into a cut on a lemon tree. What happens over time?
The grafted branch takes over.
It completely dictates the fruit. The original tree's output is erased. The roots of the lemon tree are now existing solely to feed an alien entity. That is an integration. That is a hostile takeover where the original self is entirely consumed.
But you are focusing on the flawed models to define the ideal. Yes, the text outlines the Uzik model, but it explicitly frames these alternative pathways as imperfect, and honestly, sometimes even tragic forms of transformation.
Tragic?
Yes. Grafting implies two separate entities forced together. That is not the ultimate goal of wisdom the text is pointing us toward.
Okay, but what about the T-mole model? The text presents this as another valid, albeit terrifying, pathway. In T-mole, you get this dualistic state. The human body remains, but merely as an empty, instinctual vessel.
It's a terrifying state of alienation, I agree.
It essentially becomes a zombie that exists only to feed the higher, transformed mind. The text explicitly likens this to the Egyptian deities, the ones with animal heads and human bodies. The lower half is just a mechanical engine for the higher half. There is no harmony there. The human is reduced to an unthinking battery.
Exactly. It is alienation. The text portrays the Egyptian dualism as spiritual parasitism, not spiritual transformation. The human lower half in that model is a deadweight. It's an unintegrated vestige. I completely reject that as the author's ultimate ideal.
So you think it's just a warning?
Just because the text describes a pathological outcome of spiritual pursuit, that doesn't mean it's prescribing it.
Then explain Sarad to me, because this is perhaps the most extreme mechanical process in the entire text. A human birth is quite literally intercepted.
Well, Sarad is
Overwritten in the cosmic registry before it even takes a breath.
right, but
How is that integration? Mechanistically, the universe is saying that to achieve this level of divine presence on Earth, the human subject has to be deleted before it even starts. The host organism is functionally obsolete.
Sarad is a cosmic anomaly. It is a usurpation of the human life cycle, not an evolution of it. You keep pulling these examples of anomalies and failed integrations to prove that destruction is necessary.
Because the text spends so much time on them.
It explores them, yes, but the text champions the Darwin model as the absolute ideal. In the Darwin state, the original human and the divine seed become so flawlessly united that they cannot be separated into host and parasite.
You're referring to the Yared example.
Exactly. The text uses the historical figure of Yared to illustrate this. When Yared achieved ultimate wisdom, he didn't become a zombie feeding a higher mind. He didn't get overwritten at birth. He became a fully integrated singular being.
Okay, but
And the text deploys a brilliant analogy to explain how this works mechanically. The mirror.
right, the mirror analogy.
When you look in a mirror, the reflection looks back at you. Mechanistically, you cannot isolate the observer from the observed. The gaze is mutual, it's simultaneous, and it's identical.
But they are two distinct things.
In the Durkheim framework, the flesh becomes divine, and the divine becomes flesh. You cannot surgically extract the human from the divine any more than you can physically pull your reflection out of the glass. It is a seamless reflection of two natures becoming one. There is no lemon tree and orange branch here. It is an inseparable union.
But, I mean, a mirror is incredibly fragile. If the human is the glass and the divine is the reflection, what happens when the human desires assert themselves? Because the practicality of this mirror union completely falls apart when the text examines the psychological reality of the transformed individual.
Falls apart? How?
Let's talk about what actually happens to this person's mind. If you were listening to this and thinking, well, I'd love to achieve ultimate wisdom, but I still want to enjoy my normal life, the text has a pretty devastating warning for you.
It warns that the pursuit requires total commitment.
It warns that your mundane ambitions are entirely executed. The author uses highly relatable modern examples to explain this psychological death.
Sure.
Getting your university degree, dead. Pursuing a normal career, dead. Starting a poultry farm like your siblings, completely dead. The text describes this as a total physical inability to relate to the desires of your former self.
Right.
The individual literally cannot fathom going back to a classroom or running a business. The motivation isn't just suppressed, it is spiritually gone. So I ask you, if our desires, our ambitions, and our motivations are what constitute our human identity, our teboi, and those are entirely eradicated, how is that not effectively the death of the original self?
What you are conflating?
If the I that wanted to build a farm and have a family is dead, then the person is dead. A zombie isn't a mirror, it's a hijacked car. The entity driving the car might be divine, but the original human driver has been thrown out.
You are completely conflating the death of a habit with the death of the subject. You're saying that because a person changes their mind about what matters, they have been murdered.
It's more profound than just changing a habit, though.
Let me give you a counterexample from normal human development. When you were a 5-year-old, your highest, most consuming ambition might have been to build a fort out of sofa cushions in the living room.
Sure.
Today, as an adult, that ambition is entirely dead to you. You literally cannot fathom spending your weekend doing that. Does that mean the 5-year-old was eradicated from the registry of creation? Was the child mechanically deleted so the adult could live?
No, but
No. The child matured. The desires evolved because the context of the being expanded. The physical brain developed, the understanding of the world widened, and the sofa cushion stopped being interesting.
that's a natural progression.
And the text is describing exactly this kind of maturation, just on a cosmic scale. When the divine seed in the Durkheim model blossoms, the desire to start a poultry farm doesn't die because the human has been hijacked by an alien parasite. It dies because the human's perspective is widened to encompass eternity.
Okay, but
Why would you dedicate your life to building a temporary farm when you are now cognitively engaged in the architecture of the cosmos? The text's phrase, "I go to death, he goes to life," is a poetic surrender of the lesser ambition to the greater reality. It is not an execution.
I hear you, but
The reflection in the mirror hasn't replaced the human. The human has simply realized they are looking at their true, ultimate potential. The wheat has finally been separated from the chaff.
you call it distillation. But separating wheat from chaff is still an act of violence to the wheat stalk. And your maturation analogy only works if the adult still acknowledges the child as their past self.
They do.
But in the text's description of the Uzeg, and honestly, even the higher Durgan states, the disconnection is so profound it borders on total amnesia. The text explicitly mentions that the transformed being might not even recognize the linguistic patterns or the daily struggles of the former self.
Because they have transcended them.
Mechanistically, you go from speaking one language to prophesying in another without any conscious bridge between the two. You lose the very cultural conditioning, the tebai, that made you an individual.
Well, you lose the limitations of it.
If a caterpillar has no memory of chewing leaves and operates entirely on a newly installed instinct to seek nectar, it hasn't matured. It has been fundamentally re-engineered. And that is why the text emphasizes that this pursuit of wisdom is terrifying.
It is terrifying, yes.
It requires a willingness to undergo metamorphosis, to let the structural integrity of your human Bahari collapse completely. You cannot hold on to your past.
I agree that the text frames this pursuit as terrifying. It explicitly states that this path is not for the masses who just want a quick fix for their daily anxieties.
Right.
But the amnesia you are pointing to is not a malfunction of the process, nor is it proof of erasure. It is a testament to the totality of the integration. Think of it like a virtuoso musician.
Okay.
But when a master cellist is playing a complex concerto, they have completely forgotten the tedious mechanical process of learning scales. They aren't thinking about where to place their fingers. The mundane mechanics have receded entirely so that the pure music can flow.
But the muscle memory is still there. The past isn't deleted.
Exactly. The past isn't deleted, it is absorbed into a higher function. The musician hasn't been erased by the music, they have been actualized by it. The divine seed, the Tsar, uses the universal human Bari as the instrument.
An instrument.
Yes, and in the highest state of Durjiwan, the separation between the player and the instrument completely vanishes. The amnesia you describe is just the state of flow, elevated to an ontological level. You don't remember wanting to build a poultry farm because you are entirely consumed by the symphony of divine existence.
But if the human is just the instrument, doesn't that bring us right back to the host and the parasite? I mean, an instrument doesn't have free will.
It's a metaphor.
A cello doesn't choose what concerto is played. The divine player dictates the music, and the human wood just vibrates accordingly. How is that not just the lemon tree feeding the grafted orange branch all over again?
Because the human is the music. The Durjiwan framework simply does not permit the dualism you keep trying to force onto it. You cannot separate the dancer from the dance.
But the text literally describes separate entities merging.
The text insists that when this transformation is complete, the resulting being is a singular, unified entity. The transition does require leaving behind the superficial markers of identity, the cultural conditioning, the tabé, but the core essence, the spark of life that makes us human, is elevated. It is not extinguished. The mirror reflects one face.
Well, it seems we have arrived at the fundamental crux of our disagreement regarding the mechanics of this text. Let me summarize where the logic of my reading leads me.
Go ahead.
The source material's rigorous, unflinching exploration of ontological change proves that true elevation inherently requires profound sacrifice. The transition from a mortal, temporary existence to an eternal one simply cannot happen without the complete dissolution of our original, universal human nature.
Which I see as an evolutionary step.
You cannot hold on to your mundane identity and grasp divinity at the same time. The text's models of replacement, the grafting of the Uzik, the zombification of the Tamal, the interception of birth in Sarad, along with a total erasure of earthly desires, all point to one undeniable truth. The caterpillar must die, utterly and completely, for the butterfly to live. The registry of creation must be rewritten.
And I would summarize by saying that the ultimate form of wisdom presented in this text is not an act of cosmic erasure, but an act of divine cultivation.
Cultivation.
Yes, the text warns against the imperfect models of violent possession, the zombies and the parasites, precisely because it holds up a much higher, much more difficult ideal. The gradual growth of the inner seed, the careful sorting of the wheat from the chaff, allows human nature and divine presence to exist in a perfect, indistinguishable reflection of one another.
The mirror.
Exactly. The human is not canceled. The human is finally truly seen in the mirror of the divine. The child doesn't die, the child simply grows up.
Well, one thing the text leaves absolutely no room for debate on is that this process is a profoundly rigorous map for the spiritual pursuit. It makes it abundantly clear that the pursuit of ultimate wisdom is a lifelong immersive practice.
It's certainly not a part-time hobby you can pick up on weekends.
No, not to just feel a bit more relaxed. It demands your entire existence, however you define that existence.
Absolutely. The text completely dismantles the modern notion that spirituality is just a life hack. It suggests there are incredibly deep, ancient layers regarding how different cultures and traditions manage this transformation. It's a daunting, magnificent framework that demands everything you have.
It truly is, and it leaves us with a lingering question, one deeply embedded in the text's philosophical mechanics. If we truly seek to transcend ourselves, we have to deeply consider what we are willing to lose. Are we hoping to be gradually, harmoniously evolved by a higher power?
Or must we accept that to truly ascend, our chrysalis must be a place where our old selves turn completely to ash?